This is the Seller Process Podcast, where we talk about the best systems, processes, and SOPs for your Amazon business so that you can regain control of your time, build up your team, and scale your e-com empire.
Hello, entrepreneurs. This is a new episode of our content series called In the Life of an Eight-Figure Seller, where we go deep into the business and personal life of successful e-commerce sellers who reached over $10 million in sales. So we can learn from them, get inspired, and apply their tips and tactics to our business. Today, I'm joined by Michal Specian. I'm sure I messed up with the pronunciation, but sorry about that. He's an Amazon seller since 2016, and over the years, he's scaled and sold an eight-figure Amazon private label brand with his business partner, and he transformed the business into a well-oiled machine that enabled them to achieve eight figures with just 2 full-time employees. Michal is the go-to system expert in the Amazon industry and the founder of Scaleport, which helps Amazon sellers systemize their businesses and build efficient teams. Hey, Michal, thank you very much for coming, and sorry again for messing up with your name.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
Yes. Cool. So, as we mentioned before, as maybe people know about this topic, this content series in the life of eight-figure sellers, we divide our questions into the first half, to build a picture of how your business looks like. And I know you sold your business a while ago, so you can obviously reference to that. And in the second half, we will dive deep into your tactics, your suggestions, your best practices, and all the advices that you have that you can share with us. So let's build the picture just to understand how your business looked like. Okay, so we can kind of get inspiration and know that a seven-figure business should aim to resemble kind of a similar structure to what you have built in order to achieve the similar results. So my first question for you would be, did you have any business partners or co-founders in your business?
Yes. So the business was actually founded by my business partner, who scaled it to around mid six figures. And then I came on board in 2018. Then we partnered up and started scaling and growing the business together. And as you already mentioned, we sold the business in 2021. So we've been working together for almost 4 years.
Okay, that's interesting. And we mentioned already in your intro that you only had 2 employees. So are you talking about the 2 of you guys plus the 2 founders plus 2 employees, and what you were guys doing? What were the roles?
So my business partner was actually focused on other projects. So the first year we were working together, just the 2 of us, and later he started his other projects other than the Amazon business. So I was running the Amazon business and started building a team. So at that point, it was me and hiring 2 full-time employees. And of course, some freelancers like graphic designers working with PPC agency. But when we talk about the internal team, it was just 2 employees.
Okay. What were they doing? I'm curious to understand. Who did you hire first, and what was their role?
Yeah, so we try to keep the overall business as simple as possible, and we will talk about it a bit later. But the team structure was a supply manager taking care of the whole supply chain, from inventory forecasting, reaching out to suppliers, placing POs, working with freight forwarders. And the other role was a brand manager taking care of the Amazon side, listing optimization, split testing, and working with PPC agency. So we had just these 2 people taking care of the 2 sides of the business, right? The supply, getting the products from the suppliers to Amazon, and then the brand manager taking care of the Amazon side and making sure that everything is running and well optimized.
Okay, that's interesting. And you mentioned you had the PPC managed by an agency, so that's kind of another. Let's say it's not your team, internal team, but it's another component.
Yes, we had a PPC agency at one point. Then we brought PPC optimization back internally, and we were kind of juggling this between the agency and taking it back because we couldn't really find a good fit. So at the end, the best result we achieved was when our brand manager was actually managing the PPC internally, practically replicating the process that the PPC agency implemented.
That's very interesting because, there's always this battle between internal versus outsourced, right? And especially PPC, it's kind of often the case that people struggle with understanding who's best. I'm glad, obviously, that you found the right balance, and that was internal. So some people might find that externally through an agency, and some others internally. Okay, but that's good to know. So I'm going to ask you just a few quick questions, kind of quick fire questions, that just to understand, the status of your business, right? So I'm interested to understand, like, at the peak level, 8 figures, like, how many ASINs or SKUs did you have?
So we had around 40 products, but we were testing quite rapidly. So we were dropping products and keeping just the established ones that were working. But at the peak, it was around 36, 38. And we were selling in multiple marketplaces. Therefore, we had these ASINs in the US and we were expanding to Europe. So we had UK, Spain, Italy, and basically the other marketplaces. So if we consider those SKUs as well, of course, we had to take care of them. So it was then well over 100, right? Every single marketplace expanding the most successful ASINs from the US marketplace to Europe. So we end up around 110.
Wow. Okay. That's very interesting. And I would not consider, the same ASIN into another marketplace as another product. So if you say like around 36, 40, that's really, really a great result, I would say.
Yeah. The reason why I mentioned this, that we considered it a different SKU because it required more effort to keep the listing optimized in from the perspective of our business, right? From the internal perspective, it required its own inventory management, listing optimization, and PPC management. So that's why we looked at it as essentially a separate product launch in another marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I totally understand. I agree with that. It's just kind of, I was mentioning, it's kind of impressive to me, based on the other people who I interviewed for the same content series, so reaching 8 figures. Most of other people reached 8 figures with 100 plus products, like standalone products, and without counting the fact that it's repeated across multiple marketplaces. So it's really, really impressive. So what about the average price? So maybe I'm guessing those 36, 40 products must be like really all of them like big movers, like making selling lots of units.
Yeah, so it was still the 80-20 rule. Like 20% of our products were basically bringing like 80%, 70 to 80% of our revenue. And the price point around $40.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I was expecting a bit higher price point. Many other people who have multiple SKUs, they have lower price points, so that's also a reason. Yeah, I think that's also a good choice, having standing in that price range. And 30, 40 products coming from China, from where, and how many factories did you use for that?
So we were sourcing from China. We were working with 4 factories, but as I said, due to the Pareto principle, we focused mainly on one of the factories. Basically, that factory was where we were sourcing the best-selling products, right? So like 80%, 70% of our orders were with the one single factory. And interesting fact, we basically maxed out their production. So by the end, they essentially, all of their production was going to us.
Very cool. Very cool. That's very interesting. And did you guys sell in just on Amazon, or through Shopify or other channels?
Just Amazon. As I mentioned, our goal was to keep the business as simple as possible, which is one of the reasons that it allowed us to even run and maintain the business with just basically 3 people working in the business, right? And so we sold only on Amazon, no other sales channels.
Very cool, very cool. That's good. And did you what was the no, sorry. Another question I have for you is if you in order to grow and scale to 8 figures, did you ever need to raise capital or borrow money, or it was like just organically recycling the profits?
Yeah, it was recycling the profits.
Nice, nice. Okay, okay. I would say so far it's been, one of the most unique setup that I've encountered, because most of the time people have more than 40 SKUs. They sell in multiple countries, in multiple channels, and also in order to grow, they borrow money or raise capital, or maybe they start already with the founder start off the business with lots of capital. But yeah, that's very interesting. So how long did it took for you guys to go from 7 figures to 8 figures?
Yeah, so we were stuck for around a year, around 1.5 million, due to some reasons which I will cover a bit later why we got stuck. But from around those lower 7 figures to reaching 8 figures, it was around 2.5 years, something around that, right? So as I mentioned, we sold in October 2021. So yeah, it was around 2.5 years to go from around 2 million, 2.5 million to 8 figures.
Okay.
But it is important to mention that the business was quite seasonal. Like Q4 was our biggest season, and the last December before we sold the business, we did around 2 million in sales in just 1 month in December. So everything was heavily skewed towards Q4 because the products were very giftable.
Okay, okay, that's very interesting. So what do you think were the key factors that help you to scale to make that shift from, you said, 2.5 millions to 10 millions? What do you think were the key factors?
I would say one of the main reasons why we got stuck around those 1.5 million is because at that point I was essentially running the business on my own. My business partner launched another project, and suddenly it was just me. And at that point I was doing everything. So the reason why we stopped growing is that I didn't do anything that could grow the business. I was basically just working in the business, making sure, taking care of supply and doing everything myself. And we got stuck for almost a year like that. We haven't launched any products during that year. So I would say that one of the main things was actually realizing that I was maxed out and looking at my own capacity and realizing that we need to hire, that we need to bring someone on board. That was the first lesson, because my capacity was limited, and if I was occupied by all of the low-level tasks and all the complexity and the chaos, I didn't really have time to do anything else, to do anything that could grow the business. I didn't have time to expand to a new marketplace. I didn't have time to launch new products. So the first thing, definitely hiring and building a team. The second lesson is clarifying our strategy, because especially when we reached 7 figures, suddenly you see all the doors opening, like you already mastered Amazon at that point, all the ins and outs, and suddenly you see the opportunity, another sales channel, right? You can drive external traffic, you can work with influencers, you can do so many things, and it is very tempting because with our products, there was a huge potential for influencer marketing. So I was trying a little bit of that, a little bit of something else, and suddenly, once again, that only added things to my plate, and we realized we need to simplify the business. We really need to clarify what is our strategy, how we are going to grow our business. And for us, it was very simple, maybe even too simple that it may sound boring, but we realized we are good at Amazon. So let's just play the Amazon game. Let's just launch more products and focus on listing optimization. And once we have working products, leverage that and expand to a new marketplace. And that was basically the whole strategy for the business, which really allowed us to forget everything else and just do these 3 things.
Interesting. Okay. That's very interesting because, yeah, one lesson that I get from, doing these interviews with multiple people who achieved eight figures is that there is really not a one way to achieve success. Everybody use their own unique abilities and skills to become successful. So in your case was great abilities to manage Amazon and create new successful products. So you did very well that way. Some other successful sellers they are successful by expanding into multiple channels, for example. But I do agree. Like I'm actually kind of more toward your strategy of simplification. I totally resonate with your strategy of keeping things simple. The only kind of fear, let's say so-called, that I might have into embracing fully that strategy is which by the way I am following at this point. I'm also selling just 100% on Amazon, but I'm kind of now preparing also to start selling in other channels. Is that Amazon might be it's still a third party platform, and you hear all kind of problems happening, people getting shut down. So you have a little bit less control than, for example, own selling through other channels. So what's your take on that? How do you uh de-risk the business from that point of view?
Yeah, our goal was to sell the business to an aggregator. Basically, from the beginning, we decided that we want to sell the business eventually. So the whole time, our goal was to scale the business as much as possible, keep it as simple as possible, so it is a desirable asset for a potential buyer. So we were very well aware of that risk. But of course, the diversification comes at cost. And we knew that it would only slow us down at that point because we were on the right path. We have a list of products we wanted to launch, and we had a timeline where we said, okay, let's give ourselves some time, 1 to maybe 3 years, scale the business as much as possible. So, of course, if someone is building for the long term, they might choose a different approach to build a stronger foundation and diversify, go to other channels, build an email list, build a brand on social media. So definitely, as you said, I would consider the founder's expertise, right? That's very important. Maybe you are great at numbers. Maybe you are great at branding and networking. There are just so many ways to grow the brand. But I also believe that's also the riskiest thing, because you can see that there are so many ways and you see people crushing it in so many ways that you want to try a little bit of everything, right? Some people say TikTok is the way, so I want to try it. But just to try it can be a distraction for 2-3 months, right? And in order to get it working, you need to get good at it, which takes more than 3 months. And usually you invest those 3 months of your time, maybe it won't work because, well, let's be honest, you did not put that much effort in. So you try something else because you say, TikTok's not for me, so I'll try something else. And then you find yourself jumping from one thing to another. And we really wanted to prevent that.
Yeah, absolutely agree 100%. I think, guys, you should go back 2 minutes, and re-listen this part because I think it's crucial. Yeah, this is like I would say the top one most common mistake entrepreneurs make, right? I mean, it's just jumping from one opportunity to another, just chasing the next shiny object, and just being unsatisfied with the results because obviously you didn't put enough time and effort to make it get the results that you will be satisfied with. So you're constantly jumping from one opportunity to another without never putting the right amount of effort into one thing. And if you were just to choose one thing, you would be successful at that. But the problem is that you just need to choose, and most people don't reach maybe the maturity level of choosing one thing like you did. So yeah, totally 100% agree with you. In these 3 years, you've got lots of learning experiences, trial and error. you must have learned a lot and also did mistakes, right? So what would you change or do differently if you could go back in time?
Yeah, so for me, definitely hiring sooner, because I feel like I lost the whole year when I was like figuring out how to do everything myself. And the conclusion was that I couldn't. So I would say hiring sooner. And I think this is very common, especially if you hire for the first time. For a lot of people, and for me as well, Amazon was the first business. I never hired before. And looking at that, at the hiring, bringing someone on board, we always thought like, we need to get to a certain point before we start hiring, right? And I think a lot of people have this in mind, like I need to reach a certain level of revenue or profit before I bring someone on board. So it's like you feel you need to grow in order to start hiring. But now I understand that it's more the other way, right? You need to start hiring to really unlock the growth of your brand. So that's definitely the first lesson. And also when it comes to hiring, since it was my first time to bring someone on board on the team, there were, of course, many mistakes in terms of management and figuring out how to find the person, how to hire them. But probably the biggest one was hoping that a general VA can do everything I don't really want to do, right? Figuring out, hey, I will bring an assistant and that will solve all of my issues. But once we did that, I realized that I'm no longer doing the thing I'm delegating, but I'm spending so much time explaining what needs to be done, how to do it, when to do it, reviewing the tasks, that sometimes I just decided I better do it myself, than like figuring out how to tell this person what to do, how to do it. So that was our mistake, really hiring someone who has no experience whatsoever and just, hey, I will hire this person for a few dollars per hour and just tell them what needs to be done every single day. That was a huge waste of time. And that brings me to my other point, which is a big part of this mistake, like hiring someone without any processes in place, really not knowing what we want them to do, right? You just know, I need help, right? That was the first realization. But once I bring them on board, what do I want them to do? One task is to analyze data. Another task is to work with graphic designer. And suddenly I'm giving them all of these different tasks that has nothing to do together, right? It's like, they are not entrepreneurs. We as entrepreneurs, you need to do like a little bit of everything, and that's how you start. That's how you manage to get the business off the ground. But if you hire someone, especially for $5-6 per hour, you cannot expect them to do everything and have the skill sets and the expertise. So for me, really not understanding what I want them to do, because now my approach is exactly the other way. Figure out what needs to be done, and then find a person based on that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So if you were to talk with a 7-figure seller that is asking you, to like for advice on how to reach 8 figures, like what would be your advice to a 7-figure seller?
Yeah, so if I look back at myself, I would say that your business is not you. You need to start seeing yourself and the business as a separate entity, and that will really allow you to have a different perspective, right? A lot of people mention the difference between working in and working on the business. And unless really you see yourself as a separate entity, it's impossible to look at the business and start working on it. And also don't try to master everything yourself, because when we launch, really, we are rewarded for learning the ins and outs of Amazon, right? Usually we start a business on our own, learning about Amazon, and we are really rewarded, right? Hey, I learned how to optimize a listing. I learned how to set up PPC. So we get this positive feedback loop. And suddenly we think like, hey, if I learn more about Amazon, the business will grow more. At the beginning, it's true. But at 7 figures, that really leads to obsession with like hacks and tactics and all of these things that lead to just incremental improvements, but cannot really like double the business and grow the business exponentially, right? So I feel like I personally did this, that start becoming an Amazon expert rather than a business owner. And I think that's very important distinction, right? Because really the lesson here is that just because you can do something yourself doesn't mean that you should, right? Because the main idea here is that every task has a different value. And I like to see it as a spectrum, right? From low-level tasks to high-level tasks. And if someone has a hard time to imagine, okay, so what is it, right? What is a low-level task? What is a high-level task? We can also look at it as tasks that can grow the business versus tasks that just maintain it, right? Creating a shipment and looking at inventory forecasting is not going to grow the business. It's going to just maintain the current level. But things that can grow the business, like launching a new product, expanding to new marketplace, those are usually the higher level tasks that require more creativity, more expertise, right? And I think that's a really important distinction, because then you can see entrepreneurship as a game where really you begin doing everything from the low level to high level. But once you have the resources, you can bring someone on board to delegate the low level tasks and narrow down your focus on the high level tasks, and then repeat and repeat until we really focus only on the most important things that are in the business.
Awesome. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And that's really the way most people should embrace. Yeah, start thinking, they cannot do everything by themselves, building the team and getting rid of, what's not in their unique abilities, give it to someone else who can do most of the time even a better job, or sometimes just as good as you, or even if it's 80% of what you can do. I mean, you can still take something off of your plate and dedicate the time you saved into things, the tasks that grow the business. So absolutely with you on that. But I'm seeing, from the story that you're sharing, I'm seeing that obviously you went through kind of a transformation, even like personally, right? Like not just the business, like the business. It's actually a reflection of your transformation, you as an entrepreneur. And so during that transformation, you obviously implemented some new habits and developed new habits and mastered some of them. So which one do you think were, the habits that impacted the business the most?
So I would say the first one is structuring my weeks and really understand what day I'm focusing on which area of the business, right? So for example, Mondays was working with the team, reviewing their reports and understanding what needs to be done in the upcoming week. On Fridays, for example, I blocked all of my communication and I worked only on the business. I was optimizing our processes. I was figuring out what needs to be optimized, right? What needs to be fixed, right? Looking at the issues and where we wasted our efforts and where we should redirect our resources to really scale the business, right? Really understanding a structure of this week for me was a game changer, because there was a day for product development, right? Researching products, reaching out to suppliers about product designs and so on. So really every day had its own purpose, and that helped me a lot. The second habit was the Pomodoro technique, basically a technique for deep work that really allows us to focus on a specific task in certain intervals. And this really helped me to understand the value of deep work, understand the value of my capacity, which really goes hand in hand with my previous point that as a solopreneur, you have very limited capacity, right? You only have your time. And now understanding the deep work, that maybe you don't have 12 hours every day, maybe you have only like 4 good hours for deep work, it really needs to be protected at all costs. So once again, going back to the structured week, also implementing the Pomodoro technique and really blocking out the communication, forget about micromanaging the team, and focus on a specific thing that is planned for the particular day. And the last thing I would mention is what I personally did, and I still do it to this day, have like a template for what my optimal day should look like. And really this includes the personal part of the day as well, because I wanted to run the business in a way that it's sustainable and allows me to be consistent, right? Because I see a lot of people focus on intensity. They go hard for 2-3 weeks and then they slow down for another week or two to recover. But I wanted to have a structure that allows me to keep going. Basically, over the 3 years or so, I didn't have to take any long vacations or anything like that, because it was very sustainable thanks to understanding what my days should look like.
Absolutely. I love that actually because it's something that I've talked about with some other people that talked me about burning out. And it's actually a very common thing among entrepreneurs. And I also got burned out in my first business, over about 10 years ago, and that was a hard lesson. And now I totally agree with what you're doing, and that's how I live my life as well, like
Nice.
I never stop work. I never take a vacation, a holiday, because I live into a sustainable work life. I don't even define it as work because it's what I love doing and enjoy doing. So but just for people to understand, the work, I use the word work. But yeah, as you said, absolutely, I agree. If you build a sustainable routine, you will never need a holiday, a vacation, because it's already built into your daily practice. Rest, it's built in your daily practice, in your weekly practices. So totally with you on that. And that's actually, I think, very helpful um, for any entrepreneur because it builds the consistency. And business, I think it's a marathon, not a sprint. But people basically what they're doing, most of them, it's kind of it's running this marathon because it's still a marathon whether they're acknowledge that or not, but they sprint into the marathon, so inevitably they cannot run a full marathon sprinting. So that's why they get burned out. But those who understand that actually the game, it's a marathon, they go at a pace that it allows them to be consistent, and the results happen, with consistency. So definitely with you on that. I wanted to ask you if in this journey, did you encounter any mentors, or maybe you had any books that were significantly giving you like give you something significant, or maybe some like very particular experience that you had that impacted the business and ultimately your results?
Yeah, so my business partner was basically my mentor because he was way more experienced than I was. So that was very fortunate for me that I was learning from him at the same time, working on the same project. But I would say I read books, trying to learn more about myself and more about business. But the most impactful one, definitely a book that was a game changer for me. And as you said, the transformation, I believe that reading this book really began the transformation. And that was The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Even though some people may think that the book nowadays is outdated because it is quite old, I believe that reading that book is really where the switch happened, right? Understanding that you are not your business, right? And how you achieve consistency, understanding the value of systems, processes, and overall delegation. So I personally read that book like almost 3 times in one weekend when I found it, and that really changed it for me. And when we are talking about books, one more I want to mention, it's a productivity book called Deep Work. I believe a lot of people are familiar with it. It's very famous, but for me, once again, going back to the value of deep work, the value of my input into the business, right? The value is the deep work. So trying to maximize my capacity for deep work was essential, right? And really understanding how to protect it. I believe that this was then a pivotal moment as well, understanding what the deep work means and how to protect it.
Interesting. Yeah, I read that book. Actually, I listened to the audiobook, and yeah, I do also recommend Deep Work. I didn't read E-Myth, so I'm gonna put it in my list, definitely. Yeah. So, just to conclude this part of the questions, I wanted to ask you about soft skills. Like, what were the skills that you developed that you think were very important into the journey to get to 8 figures?
I would say an important one is patience. Even though we want to move fast, sometimes really it means slowing down and building the foundation, right? as we said, when we got to those 7 figures, I was thinking that the way to grow is to keep going, keep doing what I was doing. But the patience was to take a step back and realize it can take time to set up with a foundation and then just stay consistent and trust the process. A lot of people repeat that over and over again, but it sounds easy, but it's not, right? Really stay consistent, focus on that strategy, and have the belief and the patience that it will eventually lead to the desired outcome. Another one, I would say, communication, really with the business partner and also with our team. Since our team was hired remotely from the Philippines and from Turkey, everything was happening online. So really learn how to communicate, even in a written form, when assigning tasks and evaluating performance, defining KPIs. Really, the communication here was crucial as well, right? I wanted to minimize my meetings. I didn't want to sit on meetings every single day. So really the communication, being very explicit what we want to do, what we want to achieve. And lastly, of course, time management. I also talk about the deep work. Time management was very, very important, especially realizing that, as I said, I really had only like 3 or 4 hours of valuable time I can commit to the business every day.
Right. Sounds you really mastered the productivity and efficiency. So I think those are really skills that you developed, and now I think you're very knowledgeable about those. So I think that's also what you could share with people.
I want to mention that with productivity, it's easy to become obsessed with productivity and think that productivity is the solution, right? At that point, when we got stuck in our business, I thought that it is a solution, but it's not. It's a benefit, right? But if you think about productivity, it only means that it leads to doing more, right? Which initially is the objective, but in the long term, it's not. We don't want to put more things onto our plate. So I think once we understand that the business needs the team, we need help, we start delegating, then secondary prioritize and look at our own productivity and how we manage our time. But rather than just trying to work as much as possible, I looked at it in a way like where I can add the most value in the business right now, and then try to be as productive as possible, not the other way around, right? Some people try to be productive without understanding what needs to be done, right? They're just chasing so many different things at once.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Okay, so I think we covered a lot. I mean, it was really a very informative and insightful interview. Yeah, very interesting, and I think your story, it's very unique. The way you achieved those results, it's not unlike any other of the people who I interviewed. So it's very interesting to know your story and how your business looked like. So what's next for you? Like, what are you trying to achieve now in the next few years? What are your goals and plans with your business?
Yeah, so as you already mentioned during the intro, after we sold the Amazon business, I started helping some of my friends who also had their businesses. And a lot of people ask like how we got to 8 figures with 2 employees and how we manage them with their roles. Basically, a lot of the stuff we were talking about today. So I started helping them out. Then people referred more sellers that needed help with the similar topic. And I realized that this could be turned into business. First of all, I really enjoy this topic. I think it's extremely valuable and a lot of people underestimate it, right? It's very enticing to talk about marketing and to talk about PPC, but I think that this transformation I went through is essential, and definitely it was essential in our own journey. And that's why I decided to start Scaleport, where we help Amazon sellers to systemize the business, build a team, and then eventually scale the same way we did in our business. So we basically help them replicate the whole internal structure we had in our business, because Amazon businesses, a lot of them, and most of them actually, in its core are very similar, right? So it's then easy to take what worked for us and help implement it into another business.
Yeah, for sure. So share with people like how can they find you? Like what can you help them with? Like some contact. So in case they're interested, obviously they can reach out.
Yeah, so in case you're an Amazon seller doing at least mid six figures, and you want to systemize the business, you want to build a team, you already see the struggle that your capacity is limited, or even if you already have a team and they are not very efficient, you feel like you need to micromanage them, we can help you. You can find us at scaleport.io, where you can find more information how this cooperation works. And also, if you are not sure how you are doing right now, because as I said, maybe you already have employees, maybe you already have some systems in place, we prepared a business checkup for the listeners of this podcast that helps you pinpoint the gaps in your business, right? So basically, you answer a few questions and it will help you prepare results based on my experience and based on me working with dozens and dozens of Amazon sellers. It will show you your current level of your internal operations. And also, it will show you a plan how to level up from where you are to where you should be, which is the becoming the owner of the business, getting into the owner's seat. And it's completely free, and you can find the link in the description.
Well, for sure, for sure. That's great. Yeah. We will definitely share that link in the description of the YouTube video or in the show notes in the website. So remember, guys, to go on thesellerprocess.com, find this episode, and you will find the show note in the show notes all the details, or you will find it in the description of the YouTube video if you're watching on YouTube. Michal, you wanna? Yeah, sorry, you wanted to add something?
One more thing is that I'm now getting back on YouTube as well. I used to make videos like a few months ago. I stopped for a while because I didn't have the capacity, but now I'm back and I started making videos about similar topics. So if you want to know more about systems, about processes, about building a team, and overall similar topics what we discussed today, you can find me on YouTube. Just search for my name and it will pop up.
Nice. Okay. Perfect. Cool. So, guys, yeah, these are actually very, the audience of this podcast. It's very much, I think tuned to this kind of topics that you're sharing. So they will be very interested, I think. Thank you again, Michal. So it was really, really insightful, and yeah, I loved your story. So yeah, you did really a great job. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. All right, guys. So remember, the key to success is to emulate the best. So take home the insights that Michal just shared with you, and go download the materials that we prepared for you at thesellerprocess.com, or in the description of the YouTube video. So I hope you guys had fun, had inspiration, got some inspiration from this video, from this podcast, and I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll meet you in the next episode. Thank you very much. Have a productive week. Bye bye. Hey entrepreneurs! I hope you enjoyed the episode and learned something from the interview. If you're serious about creating systems for your business, automating processes and building up your team so that you can transfer the tedious daily tasks in order to focus on more high-level strategic tasks and work on your business and not in your business, I've created a guide for Amazon sellers named Capturing Systems and Creating SOPs that you can find at thesellerprocess.com/systems ebook, where you will learn how to leverage systems and SOPs in your Amazon business so that you can accomplish more by working less, optimize your time, automate and delegate tasks, and reap the benefits of being a true business owner and not simply an operator in your own business. Go download the ebook at thesellerprocess.com/systems ebook and start implementing all the tips and insights that I share with you. And leave us a review or a comment to let us know how the content we are sharing here is making an impact in your business. And have a productive week.